Hello, my name is Angela Vandermeer, and I will be doing your professional development today over valuing adolescents in literacy instruction. So this is a professional development that is designed for elementary teachers, but if you're not an elementary teacher, feel free to still watch and you may gain some ideas on how to help your classroom as well. As an elementary teacher, it's important to create an environment where all students feel valued, motivated, engaged in learning. So, as an elementary teacher, it's very easy to help your children feel valued. That's something you, as they come in, you show them love, you tell them how well they're doing in class. Motivating a student gets a little bit trickier because each student has different things that drive them to motivate them. And engagement is looks there's a variety of ways engagement can look for a student. While some look like they're disengaged, they are actually, some of them are engaged. So we're going to kind of talk about some things to help you with that. First, you want to do is you want to connect students to text in multiple identities. So kids, like they've always been, are not always the same. No two kids are alike. They're kind of like snowflakes. Every snowflake is different. Every child is different. So when we think about what makes up our students, we start thinking about just the normal, like each student is a reader, each student is a writer. We start looking at them academically, but what we need to do is look at them as whole person. So we want to look at different things, and you want to choose diverse text that reflect those multiple identities of your students. You want to engage them with a variety of perspectives that helps them see themselves in books that they read. Most students will tell you, I enjoyed reading this book because, and then they do the text to self connection. They'll do a text to text connection. They'll do a text to real world connection. Those are the connections that we teach them from kindergarten all the way up, is how to make connections with books. But as they get older, you're going to see that they're going to want to make a connection to themselves, the more inner parts of themselves, emotional. As you get older, you'll start reading books that help you get through, adolescence, puberty. It's going to help you get through a divorce. You're going to start looking for things that fill that void or connect with that part of you. And that's where you're going to start gaining those interests in genres. So you're going to want to use like picture books, early chapter books, interactive text that explores diverse and cultural experiences, family structures, and social issues. You would be surprised how many kids, thanks to TikTok or other social media, or more up to social events going on in society, and they want to talk about it. So they want to find things that foster that. And you don't want to just say, well, this isn't appropriate for school. You want to help them foster those interests. Encourage personal connections and reflections. Some examples of that also are like the name jar. And I'm going to show you a few more in a couple of slides. So here are some different identities. You're going to have your culture. You're going to have your, it's going to be cultural. It's going to be racial. It's going to be gender, socioeconomic, linguistic. So there are a variety of different things that you're going to do, because if I'm reading only about Caucasian people and I'm not Caucasian, I'm not going to understand why people feel a certain way. A lot of kids, and one of the things that was brought up in a meeting just the other day was the fact that kids were saying, we're in February, this is Black History Month. I want to read more about African Americans, more of the Black history of our country. They want to know more. So you want to give it to me. And that's not just children of a certain race, that's children of everyone, of all races. They want to understand what other people are thinking. And that helps us, with empathy. Gender. I may want to read a book based on the fact that I'm a female because maybe there's a thing going on in my life and I just don't understand it as a child. Well, if I read about someone else, then I am able to do it. A good example of that is Dear Dumb Diary. It talks about a little girl that's just really having a hard time in school. Well, kids can relate to that. They can be like, oh yeah, Judy, so-and-so was really cute. She's beautiful. Everybody likes her. Then she gets gum in her hair and she has a cut one side. And I remember when the line said, she's really pretty from the left side. or it was the road, whichever side it was that got cut because she had to cut her hair. They can relate to that. They're like, oh, that person's now like me. They're not perfect. So being able to find people of the same gender, people that are same poverty level, or people with, different diverse economic status. There are people, some people don't understand what it's like to be middle class. Some people don't understand what it's like to be upper class. Some people don't understand what it's like to go from paycheck to paycheck. So this also helps them understand how people feel and how they're feeling, so they feel like they're not the only ones. Here's some of the books. The Name Jar, that's a really great book. The Colors of Us, Ruby Bridges. There's Through the Eyes of Me, Rainbow. The Proud is the Blue. That's a really good book. Whoever You Are. Now, I put on here the Ninja Life Hacks because those are behavioral. Students also want to read about other kids that are struggling with behaviors. They want to understand how, if I'm having a problem with my behavior, oh, this kid in this book is too, and this is how they're able to use those tools. It's not just, the outside of me. Sometimes we want to look for things that encompass the inside of us also. Using motivation frameworks to enhance engagement. Self-determination theory, you have competence, and it needs to be effective when dealing with the environment. Humans' 3 basic needs. Autonomy, you want things you need to control the course of their lives. Relatedness, needs to be able to have a close, affectionate relationship with others. So these are just some of the things that we'll talk about, just helping motivate them, like being able to understand your self-determination and why you want to do these things. Motivation increases when students feel in control, capable, and connected. So when I want to feel motivated about something, I want to feel like there's a purpose. I remember someone had quoted something Elon Musk said. He said, if you go into a meeting and it doesn't have anything to do with you, or it doesn't relate to you within 10 minutes, get up and leave, which isn't the best thing to do in a meeting because it's a little disrespectful. But in all fairness, when you go to professional development, how many of you disengage within a few minutes because you do not feel like this is something you can use in your classroom? That's how the kids feel when we're teaching. And that's how they feel about a book. If they cannot feel some kind of connection to a book within a few pages, they're not going to complete that book. They're not going to complete that task because they don't understand the purpose. They don't feel connected to that text. So we want to show them, regardless of what you're reading, you can find a connection to that text. So we want to provide choice in reading materials. We want to celebrate those small milestones. It could be something as simple as, wow, Timmy wasn't reading but 3 pages in a week. He's reading 5 to 10. That's huge because maybe Timmy's been struggling, or maybe he hasn't been diagnosed with dyslexia or reading, a specific learning disability, or maybe Timmy just doesn't like to read, or have support somewhere to read. These are things that you can celebrate. Hey, he found something. Let's figure out what's motivating him to read more this week, and then celebrate those things. Foster collaborative activities. Let kids talk about what they're reading. If they are not talking about what they're reading, then they can't get excited about it. If I can't share what I'm learning, then I'm just keeping it to myself, and no one else is learning from it. So you want to be able to do activities where they can talk to other people. What are academic literacies? Academic literacies include decoding, comprehension, communication, and critical thinking, all of which help students succeed across subjects. You want to integrate literacy into all subjects, both print and digital literacies, and you want to build that vocabulary across the contents. One thing we do in my Pull Out Dyslexia class is I try to find out any vocabulary that they are working on in other classes. We can incorporate that. We can discuss it. We can talk about where we see it in other places. We can talk about how in one subject it may mean one thing, in another subject it may mean another. Those things are important to build their vocabulary so they're not stuck on thinking one way only. So these are some things that really help students. So this is just kind of some things that just like a little Venn diagram talking about how all of these subjects, reading, writing, and speaking, all are part of your academic literacy. You can incorporate digital literacy, critical thinking, and vocabulary development. Some best practices for literacy, elementary literacy instruction: effective literacy instruction, differentiation, active engagement, continuous assessment. I know we sometimes talk about we assess and assess, we test and test. At some point, you're going to need to use that data. You're going to, don't test and don't assess just for the kids to get used to that. You are not trying to build up their stamina on testing. They've got it. Trust me, they get tested enough in every subject. So you want to use that to drive your instruction. If you're not looking at the data in which you're using for your assessments and all your evaluation, you're losing so much information. Those assessments give you ideas of what you need to reteach, review, and reassess again, because you want mastery. You're not looking for the grade, you're looking for the mastery of those skills. So being able to use these practices is important. Use small group reading and flexible grouping. Do not stick to one set of grouping for 9 weeks. No student stays the same for 9 weeks. And if they are, that's not a student problem. That's a teaching problem. So you need to look at yourself and say, hey, if everybody in this group's the exact same, maybe I need to change up the style in which I'm teaching, because maybe they're not getting the success that they need. Foster groups with collaboration and peer discussion. You want them to be able to talk through it, because as an adult, the maturity of your thinking process and your critical thinking is a lot higher. Students can help other students by peer tutoring, peer instruction. I think this because, oh, I think this too. Oh, I see what you're thinking. I'm thinking the same way. Excuse me. Incorporate multimedia to make learning dynamic. I could sit up here all day long and hand you handouts, but if I'm teaching the exact same way, it becomes redundant. You want to mix it up. You want to incorporate things of technology. You want to incorporate dynamic learning, multisensory learning. You want kids to move around. We as teachers cannot sit through our professional development without drawing something, doodling, thinking of a million things you need to do. Probably several of you have looked at your phone a few times. That's human nature. We have, as technology has been incorporated in our lives, we have learned to multitask. It is so hard for kids to sit there and take a test because they don't study at home in quiet. They don't do homework in quiet. They don't do anything in quiet. There's usually music playing, there's TV going, little brothers running around the room. So you want to do dynamic learning that gets them moving around. You want to use multisensory things because that's what they're used to. They're used to moving around. They're used to using their hands and their, eating, drinking, moving around, all of these things while they're studying. So you want to encompass that when you do your instruction. So when we talk about learning, we're going to talk about, you're going to start with your differentiated instruction and you're tailoring it to your student needs. So that's going to be kind of where you're going to look at your data and you're going to say, okay, this is what my kids need and this is how I'm going to give it to them. You're going to do those interactive learning, hands-on activity, group work, anything like that. And you're going to then assess the learning on ongoing formative assessments to guide that instruction. It all jumps right back to here. So you're going like this. This is going to tell you if you need to change something in here. This drives this. They say don't teach to the test. You're not teaching to the test. You're teaching the skills that will be on the test. And sometimes you do need to teach the test because when that's being said, a lot of people think you're reading verbatim what the test is. It's not. When you're teaching to the test, you're in essence getting them prepared for the test. That goes for test taking skills. That goes for all the skills that are needed in a test. So assessments are important. It's to keep everybody moving forward, because if there weren't assessments, you would have some people that never looked back on how to tailor this to their students and how to change up the way that they were teaching. Motivating students through choice and autonomy. When students have choice, they feel empowered and motivated. So provide a variety of books and genres. I know a lot of times our schools give us our libraries, and if we bring any other library books in there, we got to make a whole list and get it approved and all of that. Find things that your school, if your school's like that, find things that they will provide for you. Go to the library, see what they have in that library. Let students choose their own reading goals. What is their goal for the month? A book a month, a 10 pages a day, what is theirs? And celebrate those milestones and accomplishments. Because while one kid can read 100 pages, I'm a very fast reader. I can read a book in a night. If I love it, if I don't love it, it will take me a week and a half. But I can set those goals for myself and say, okay, I need to read so many books, or this is my goal. But I have a daughter that hates to read, and we used to set goals every summer to get her where she would get that reading stamina for whenever she went on to junior high and high school. So we had different things for her to do that were different from her sister who loved to read. So you find those different things. Some of the things that you could do a reading choice board that gives them different things to read. A tasting reading project. I used to do a book cafe where students would read and people would come into our room and they could, off the menu, pick different books that the kids could either tell them about, read a chapter from, or they could read if it was a picture book. So they had different options. Would you like the summary? Would you like a chapter out of a chapter book? Or would you like a picture book? It was all based on this one child and what they could read and their interest. And the kids loved it. We spent one day doing it. We had teachers come in, we had other classes come in, and the kids were able to do that. They would serve them and say, what would you like for your menu? Would you like an appetizer? That would be me telling you, would just be doing like this book. I really enjoyed it because of, it had great elements of mystery and, all of these things. And they can just give them like a little quick book talk on it, or a recommendation, or they could actually read the books to them. So they had a little stages on it, and the kids loved it. Practical tips for creating and engaging literacy classrooms. Use a variety of strategies to engage students in literacy. Incorporate those read alouds. Some kids that are struggling reading love read alouds. Not all the time is reading a book for fluency. Not all the time is it reading for comprehension. Sometimes reading a book is just to enjoy reading a book. You want to incorporate, maybe you want them to work on getting visuals in their head of what's going on. Read aloud to the kids. Tell them, close your eyes. Tell me what you're thinking. What are you seeing? What color is this? What do you see? Draw a picture of it afterwards. Do read aloud. It helps with those skills that lead into comprehension. Group discussions. Hey, grab shoulder partner, go tell them what you read. Writing activities. You want to look at that and you want to give them things to do with it. Use interactive tools like digital storytelling or online reading games. Make it fun. Make reading fun. Don't make it where everybody's like, I just don't want to do it anymore. Foster the growth mindset by focusing on effort and improvement. If they're trying and they're doing their best, celebrate that. All right, some reflections and action steps. How can you adapt these strategies to meet your students' needs? Reflect on those identities of your students' identities. Take time, you can pause this professional development and think about what are some things you have in your classroom. Do you have kids that recently lost a parent? Do you have kids that are divorced families? Do you have kids that are homeless? Do you have kids from different cultures? What are some things? Like, make yourself a map of these are things in my classroom. How can I incorporate these things into our reading? How do you incorporate more choice and motivation into your lessons? So you're going to want to find out some different things that how are you going to give them more choice? Get choice boards. What type of academic literacy do you want to focus on your classroom? So these are just some things you want to look at. Moving forward, valuing our students every day. By valuing our students' identities, motivating them to engage and foster academic literacies, we lay the groundwork for lifelong learners. So you want to apply these practices to make literacy instruction more inclusive and engaging. You want to continue to reflect on your strategies based on your students' needs. Don't just let this be a one-time thing. You want to keep coming back to this. You want to say, hey, I applied this didn't work, or this worked. How can I tweak this a little better? So these are some things that you want to do with that. So bounce some ideas around you can use in your classroom. So if you're sitting with another teacher during this professional development, talk to each other, say, what's something you use in your classroom? I've used reading theaters, I've used book cafes, I've used choice, book choice, I've used audiobooks, I've used digital books, you get Kindles, whatever you can use to incorporate that reading. I've had students write books about themselves for other kids to read. What a better way to incorporate identity is to let kids write about themselves. You can come up with a multitude of different ways. So stop for a little bit and then talk to some people or write down some ideas. I know there was several places in there you could stop, and so this could be a little bit longer, but I want to thank you for your time. If you have time, please scan the QR code for this survey and let me know if there's some things that you would like help on, or if you want to know some more things, or if you want to kind of give me some ideas and some great things that you use in your classroom. I'm open for it all. If you think maybe you want to see some more professional developments, I have a few more coming. So these are just some things, but the QR code lets me know, how I can help you better in the future. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have a great school year. And remember, incorporate those multiple identities in your classroom to promote that engagement and motivation. You're doing amazing. Celebrate those milestones.